Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online. G'day, I'm Fletch and welcome as I bring you to a regional part of Victoria. Today it's about Holdens and possibly one of the largest private collections in Australia. Now you're about to see this exclusive in this week's Classic Restos on the road. Nice place this, part of a 1,500 acre property. Got a bit of a homestead there behind me, or not bit of a homestead, all of a homestead. Kevin is a really interesting guy and apparently he has some Holdens. It's time to meet Kevin Smith, residing in this beautiful family heritage farmhouse where the country charm is laid on. Makes you want to arrive, smell the homemade cooking and kick back. Kevin is semi-retired and I featured Kevin here around about 10 years ago on Classic Restos. You can search for that episode on the Shannons Club. I really enjoy my time with Kevin and we can talk cars and personal stuff for hours. Nice place here, Kev.
Yeah, it is.
See yourself ever moving?
No.
Been here a long time?
Yeah, a long time.
Think it'll rain?
No.
Kevin, it's wonderful to see you again.
Yes, good, great to have you back, Fletch.
After all these years.
Yeah, I think it's been 10 years or so since you were here last, so welcome back. It's great to see you.
Thank you, it's an absolute pleasure. Now last time, around about 100 cars were here.
Yeah, that's right. I've increased that since that, in that 10-year period. I've got 140 now.
Okay, so 40 additional Holdens.
Yes.
Now 10 years ago, Kevin, all the cars were out in the open. We were here filming, it was like 40-degree heat. It's nice to see the cars now inside some sheds.
Yes. Well, what I find, Fletch, I say to people, if you go down now, sneak down to the sheds, you'll hear the cars singing no more rain and no more sun, you know. Yeah. So yes, they're in a much more better environment now.
Yeah, that's
sure.
That's nice, isn't it? It really is. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to fly in some of the footage of that episode of Classic Restos filmed here around 10 years ago, just to perhaps whet your appetite, remind you of that episode.
I want to talk to you about this beautiful HK Monaro. This reputedly was the first one sold through Alan Cap in Wangaratta. And it was sold to a Mr. O'Kane who came from Wangaratta and bought the car in November 1968. It's a beautiful car. It's got only a 161 motor in it, and the only accessory that Mr. O'Kane ordered for it was front mud flaps. So it's a very, very basic car, quite a very rare car, and I think his wife died a month after he purchased the car, so it's really had very, very minimal use.
Original books in the glove box too.
Yes, his original books are there with, you know, his tag to put things there, whatever. And it's a very, very special car because, you know, for a lot of the time the HK Monaros, they were, you know, the 5-litre V8 was in vogue. And so people who ordered a Monaro normally ordered the great big 5-litre thumper in for the motor. Yeah. This is kind of like the little baby 161, which I find quite extraordinary.
Yeah. Well, I can remember a story on one of these particular cars and it sends shivers down my spine. I can remember the year, it was 1983, and a mate of mine pulled up at the front of where I used to live in Miranda in the Sutherland Shire of New South Wales with this same car. It was a 186S.
Right.
And he was humming and hawing whether to buy it. And I can still remember going for a drive around the block in this car, white with a red interior, $1,500. And he didn't buy it. He decided not to buy it. And when I turn up here today and see something like this, it just takes me right back. If we only had the foresight. Speaking of which, without being rude, I've got to know, what did you pay for it? Just because I'm curious.
Well, yeah, it was interesting because like when we I remember when they were worth $1,000, $1,500 was sort of like the vogue. But, all of a sudden the Monaro prices rocketed and I paid $20,000 for it, which if you had looked at 10 years ago would have been extraordinary. But when you look at the type of car and the condition of it is very, very reasonable. And, I've had Shannons come up here and look at all the cars and give me a valuation on all the cars. And the value.
Good, you couldn't go wrong there. I mean, wow, you couldn't get better people to come to your property and have a look at this collection.
No, that was superb because they went around each car individually and, checked out, the actual car, what accessories were either on it or, what was particularly unique about it, whatever. And so they were spot on with their valuations, whatever. They were wonderful to deal with. And so the valuation of this car has jumped markedly since I bought it. It's been, a very good investment. But more importantly than that too, what I try to keep alive is the family connection with these particular vehicles. And I see myself as a trustee for Australia's Holden motoring history, virtually. And so Mr. O'Kane's car, that's how I refer to it. It's not I own it now, but...
We're temporary custodians.
That's right, exactly. So his... purchase of his car, I don't know whether he probably would have thought that all these years, 45 years later or whatever, that he would be still remembered as, his Monaro and looking through his books, whatever.
Incredible, Kevin, where a decade just went.
So quickly, and what a momentous decade there's been. So much change and so much, particularly with the Holden demise and with, cars and all that sort of stuff, Fletch. So, yes, a fairly, in some respects, very sad, but a very dramatic 10-year period.
One door closes, another one opens, and obviously General Motors Australia has always something on the drawing board, and with classic Restos too, with reminding people with your Holden, no matter what Holden that may be, any car for that matter, the Holden certified service still continues in Australia. So, that's an important thing as well.
Yes, it is, and I think the presence of Holden still, albeit changed, is still a very important aspect of Australia's motoring reality. I think it's very good to still have Holden around.
I know that Holden runs in your veins and it runs very deep with you. And anyone that has 140 Holdens, right, that's got to say something. They go back to when you were a child, and it's just amazing over there. You've even got toys from your childhood.
Yeah, that was where I guess it all triggered from. I loved Holdens. I loved Holden station wagons, even as a very young boy, and I was, aware of all the different models, whatever. And it was amazing. I got Holden cars as toys as a very young boy. That I used to play in the sandpit with them. I've still got them, and I still love them as much as what I did back then.
I've been a motoring enthusiast all my life. My Coupe 4 is rare and very special. A real performance car with all-wheel drive grip. I'm not a car club bloke and I don't work on it myself, but I do have a great mechanic. One day, I might even get that HQ. When it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons.
Shannons shares your passion. Call Shannons on 13 46 46. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts.
When it comes to cars, there are some brands that will remain with us forever, no matter what. The Holden was always Australia's own car, held high in the hearts of many. Those lines, that chrome, the stories around them, and the people that owned them. From the classic through to the final, you can still trust in genuine Holden and AC Delco parts, available through the Holden Certified Service Network. Kevin, to think 10 years ago here on this property, and I can remember the cars were pretty well scattered around, weren't they?
Look, it was quite an amazing thing. They were all lined up in the paddock here,
Yeah.
And they were lined up, not in any particular order.
There was
and,
no specific order whatsoever.
No, and they were out in the hot sun. It was a particularly hot day that day, Fletch, I remember.
Have you still got the two-door, the 161 Monaro, the white car?
Yes, I've still got that. That's in the other shed.
You know, sometimes I think it should be classic restos and preservations. Before we go into one of Kevin's sheds, let's just have a look at this FB. Now, I know she looks a little rough, but Kevin saved this particular 1960 FB Holden from the tip. And it's going to be one of his restoration projects. He's got all the parts for it, and immediately when you look inside, the condition of the floor pan is very, very good. And that's not a bad place to start, because if you've got a good floor pan, good firewall, that's important. All this panel stuff here, even if you didn't have these guards, a lot of this stuff could be panel beaded. And that's the advantage too of getting back to the gauge of the steel used on these old cars. But have a look at it. Once upon a time it was off to the tip, and it would have been long gone. But the passion that Kevin has is preserving these cars. Doesn't matter if a couple still sit out in the paddock, at least they're still here and they're still with us with some sort of future potential. Just makes us think of the day that this car drove out of a Holden dealership once upon a time, and how proud the owner would have been to pick up their brand new FB Holden. And hopefully down the track we'll see this car enjoy some more kilometres out on the road. So Kevin, we're inside new shed number 1, and some of the additional 40 cars are in here, correct?
So this shed was built to house these cars. Since I saw you last, there's been about, another additional 40 cars built. Some of these are the ones. They've come from all around the place, Fletch. They've come from country New South Wales, country Victoria, some from Melbourne, all makes, all models, and they've all been saved from annihilation at some point.
Yeah.
And so they rest here in the shed awaiting restoration.
That's wonderful. I've noticed there's more FBs than say EKs. Is that for any reason? You've got a soft spot for the FB?
I love the FB Holdens. I love the styling of them. I love the colours of them. There were a time when new colours were coming in, and beautiful, absolutely lovely.
They don't make them anymore. Every one you've got here is you've really just got to hang on to this stuff.
Well, that's right. What I find is that I have an ambition that every one of these cars at some stage will be restored.
Wow, yeah.
And so this is not a situation that's going to happen in 2 years or 5 years, whatever. This could be 50 years or whatever.
Yeah.
So every one of these cars I would like to see fully restored.
Well, you're a person of your word and you're a man of determination, because 10 years ago you said these cars are going to be in sheds one day. And well, okay, here we are. They're in sheds.
Yeah, it takes time, and like building the pyramids or building anything massively, it doesn't happen overnight. So there's been a lot of money spent on the sheds. There's been a lot of money, preserving these cars. And the important thing that I see too, Fletch, is that I see myself as a trustee of Australia's motoring heritage. So owners, collectors, they come and go, they disperse them, there's estates and whatever. So the important thing is the life of the collection continues, and that's what I see as the main purpose of collecting this stuff. One of the important aspects of these cars is that every one of them has been associated with initially a buyer, and they've all been associated with families. And so there's been lots and lots of memories that have been created in these Holden vehicles as they did their service to Australian families. They've all had their soul intact as far as I'm concerned. They're all waiting with a lot of stories to unlock. What I do is I try to, with these vehicles too, I try to maintain the connection with the original families. Some cars I know no history, but I can then talk about the history as I acquired it, how I found it. There's photos that accompany them sitting in situ somewhere.
So you know the story of every car you have?
Every car that I have, I know the story of.
Kevin, I love this. An original Prem wagon. Look at it. It's old, it's been let go, but it's not wrecked and The patina is here. It's just an original car. I love it.
It's a beautiful car, Fletch, and Holden were quite special. This is the colour scheme is Fowler's white is the Fowler's ivory, I should say, is the white roof. Portsea blue is this metallic blue body paint. So named after a Victorian seaside town. Mm-hmm. This is a very, very amazing car. It's body number 35. Wow. So I would say that it's probably the oldest in existence Holden Premier Station wagon built in Melbourne.
And a manual car as well.
It's very, very rare. There were some statistics saying that there were only out of a production run of 253,000 EH Holdens. Mm. I'm not sure what component of that were Premier station wagons, but the stats were there was only about 70 manual Premier station wagons built.
It's just such a classy wagon. And I can remember back in the day too, where seeing that sticker on the rear screen, when you saw power brakes like that, it's like, whoa, this car's going to stop quick, you know. Well, that was the whole point. It was to let you know that this car could stop in front of you fairly quickly, and if you're behind with standard drum brakes, don't get too close. You might run up the back of him.
This was amazing. The stopping capacity of this car with the power PPR brakes. Yeah. This is unusual that this has got many options that that you wouldn't normally necessarily find in a station sedan. Yeah. And so I don't know. Perhaps it was where somebody said, I'm going to be travelling around, I want to promote the station, the new station. Yeah. And incidentally, while I'm referring to it as station sedans, Holden only referred to their station sedans as station wagons as late as the HJ model. Mm-hmm. So from the very first FE up to the HQ were only known as Holden station sedans, never station wagons.
Right, okay. I love the variety you've got here. It gets back to those options again. You know, it's just amazing that the cars you do have here, also uniquely different. This is a gem. This really is.
This was a very important acquisition to the Holden memorabilia and whatever. This was known as Holden's Black Book that was produced fairly recently. And the relevance of this is that every particular Holden that I have here, even the FB that we looked at before, all the details, the colour codes, the trim codes, all the important information is recorded in this book for reference. So this becomes almost the Holden owner's Bible as far as a reference for their particular vehicle.
Every weekend around Australia, motoring enthusiasts get together to share their passion for cars and bikes. It's a passion that brings us together. All sorts of people, all sorts of cars and bikes. From the classics of today to the classics of tomorrow. At Shannons, we understand enthusiasts. So when it comes to insurance, it's got to be Shannons. Shannons, insurance for motoring enthusiasts. Call 13 46 46 for a quote.
They may not be making the classic Holden anymore, but the legacy lives on. You can still have a Holden certified service using genuine Holden and AC Delco quality parts at over 180 centres across Australia. Go to holden.com.au to find your nearest centre. Book your Holden in, maintain the pride. And of course, if you own a classic, it goes without saying, it just has to be insured with Shannons. Why not pick up the phone and give Shannons a call for a quote and a chat on 134646. And the Shannons Club awaits you. For more information, visit shannons.com.au. Moving through today's episode, time now for Kevin's second shed. Let's go inside there and see what awaits us. Okay, shed number 2, I can't believe this. Another pristine EH wagon and a Melbourne tram. You're just full of surprises, Kevin, aren't you?
You never know what's locked up in farm sheds, Fletch, that's for sure.
Not just a Melbourne tram, but it's on its own concrete slab. It's got its own railway line. Anyway, we'll talk about that in a moment. This beautiful wagon behind us, what's the story there?
Now, this beautiful car, its name is Peachy, a beautiful car that I bought way back in 1975.
You've had your cars a long time, haven't you?
I have, and Peachy's as loved today as what it was when I first bought it.
So would that have been your first car
it was.
that you drove?
And so you read off the
Did you have P plates on it?
Yes, I did.
You did?
I did. L plates and P plates. But it was interesting, you know, because people talk about, a love for their first car.
Yeah.
And, you know, and they'll talk about, oh, I wish I still had it, or wish, you know, we'd never got rid of it, whatever.
Yeah.
But I can sort of, with great pride, say, here's my darling still.
That's wonderful.
So we travelled many, many miles in this car.
Yeah.
It's a very unusual colour, Fletch. It's called gingerbine mauve. Never seen before, never seen since.
Almost, well, it's a pastel-y colour. And
It is.
And it suits, to me, in my opinion, it's a beautiful colour that befits the car.
Yeah. Most unusual.
Yeah.
And most of them were, strangely enough, automatics in this colour combo. This is a manual one. But yes, it's much loved. I love it as much today as when I first bought it.
You weren't tempted over the years to, when the release of the VB Commodore came out, and then the VC, were you tempted to go to the Commodores at all?
No, never.
You've always stuck with the well, I guess the heritage breed, with the original old Holdens.
Well, it was interesting, Fletch, that my family never traded in a car.
Wow.
So, and we have original, our grandparents' 1925 and 1928 Buick cars still in sheds over at home.
Wow. That's beautiful history that you have here, and I love that. I admire that. That's what Classic Restos stands for. But when it comes to trains, related products, and we've got the Melbourne tram there, that's something totally unique, and I will admit something. When these were coming up for grabs a while ago, I did inquire, because I did imagine having one in the front of our property at home.
Ah, right.
I don't know why, but I just did. But anyway, I never went ahead with that. So just a little bit of history. How old is this tram? When did it start? How long did it run for around Melbourne?
Well, this tram was built in 1951 and would have been on the Melbourne circuit. It was originally from Preston down to the city and back up St George's Road, but then finished up on the Carnegie line.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was that's where its final line.
Some of the old advertising is still inside as
Yeah,
well.
it is. Yeah. But you know, Fletch, what was interesting was that there were 4 manufacturers of these trams. Now, keeping in mind from the historical timetable, in the 1930s, so another before 18 years until the production of the first Holden car, General Motors Holden, prior to the Second World War, were one of 4 manufacturers building these trams. And our trams were of such a standard that we were exporting them to America.
Now that's saying something.
So these W-class trams, if you go to San Francisco today, are still on the trams system there.
Right, and these were made by Holden?
Made
by General Motors Holden?
General Motors Holden was one of the manufacturers. There were 4 manufacturers of them.
Of course, it's that time of the show where we know this guy is a dead set Holden legend, and thanks to our friends from General Motors Australia, we'd like to hand you this Holden Legends pack.
Wow, this is extraordinary.
Yes, a limited number have been given to Fletchy to distribute to appropriate people.
Oh, this is incredible.
You are very befitting of that.
Well, thank you very much, Fletch. It's truly flabbergasting. I didn't expect that at all.
Well, these Holden Legends packs are available online, but of course we have a few to give away. And in this case here, couldn't go to a better guy. And you live and breathe the brand. You always have, you always will. So please display this somewhere with pride.
Thank you very much for that, Fletch, and thank you for the suppliers. This is just a truly momentous gift. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for today and the opportunity to come back.
That's been wonderful.
Yeah, like, you know, 10 years ago and Classic Restos returns. So, and it's not over yet because there's more stuff here to see and we'll grab that down the track. So keep up your great efforts. It's been a pleasure having you on today's show.
Thank you.
And until next time, take care, hey?
Yeah, thank you very much, Fletch. That's been wonderful.
You're
Thanks
welcome.
once again.
Not much time is given to these 1983 JB Camaro, but there's 2 main reasons why this car is on Kevin's property. The first one is that it has the Holden lion on the front of the grille, and the second is that it was made in Australia. So that is just some of the Holden collection belonging to Kevin Smith. Shed 3 behind me is also full of flagship Holden cars that didn't even make today's show. Kevin stands proud of his Holdens, and it's nice to see this many have been preserved, and I hope that you liked what you saw. Until next week, no matter where you're watching Classic Restos from, please ride and drive safe. I'm Fletch. Thanks for watching. You can like and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Classic Restos TV and watch catch-up episodes at shannons.com.au. Classic Restos is proudly brought to you by Shannons, where you can sign up to be a member of the Shannons Club, your local Holden certified service centre, Pace Farm the enjoyable egg, and Heron Forbes Machinery House, where you can buy online.